Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to go over the concept of the new Blockade Runner event, why it's not what CAG think it is, and how to actually create an industrial dynamic event. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons for their support of the channel and the Armory. So let's start with what the Blockade Runner event is supposed to be. The event is coming with 324 and it was talked about in a recent ISC. The trigger for creating it was that there are too many combat focused dynamic events and CAG wanted to make one about cargo. Now, the described flow of the event is that outlaws are blockading a space station and have stolen some valuable cargo. So the players have to fight the blockading outlaws, then chase their ships, then fight and disable those, steal the stolen cargo back, and then fight their way back to the station to deliver it. And from that description, I think everyone can see that this is not a cargo event, but a combat event with a cargo feature. Now, this is not bad. It's actually a pretty good idea for an event. It even has a red team mission, so players can side with the outlaws, which I think should result in some interesting situations. But you can't go around calling this a cargo event because that's not what it is. It's about as much of a cargo event as Xenothreat. Once again, Blockade Runner is not a bad idea or a bad event. It's just not what CAG advertised it to be or what they believe it to be, which casts doubt on whether they understand what players mean when they ask for industrial and non-combat events. So what would a non-combat or industrial event look like? Well, first we need to understand that an industrial event doesn't mean that there is no chance of combat at all. It means that completing the goal of the event is not tied to combat. However, combat could happen but in an emergent way. So, for example, you're transporting cargo related to the event and an enterprising group of pirates set up an ambush that you get caught in. They weren't specifically targeting you for the mission, but were taking advantage of the increased traffic. And second, it might be necessary to challenge the concept and the mechanics of dynamic events to support industrial events. I think that industrial events require more strategic mechanics that are out of scope for the current implementation of dynamic events, but we will get to that in a minute. So let's start with a cargo event. The idea could actually be pretty simple. A transport company or the UEE logistics units are overwhelmed and cargo is piling up at one of the jump gates and needs to be taken to other places. Players accept the mission and that allows them to pull mission cargo in whatever form they can transport from the cargo elevator and deliver it to the destination. And with the versatility of cargo elevators, you can make the mission cargo pretty much anything. It would be pretty cool if we got to transport fresh off the line new fighters for the UEE still in their transport containers. But cargo isn't the only option here. There could be a follow-up event after Xenothreat where players get to tow and salvage destroyed and damaged ships from the combat area for an extra reward. Not only this gives industrial players something to do, but it ties into an existing event. You could also have a science-based event, collecting the insect shells and other items from caves or scanning wildlife locations. And of course, we can't forget about mining. Currently an issue with mining is that only the top few minerals are profitable enough. But a mining-based event could temporarily solve this until other material sinks are in-game. CAG could put out an event where a certain refinery or several refineries are looking for shipments of certain ores for extra money. This would incentivize players to mine ores that they usually don't and would generate some traffic around refineries. And with that we get to challenging the mechanics of dynamic events. Currently, dynamic events are designed as a concentrated effort of a given game instance. The event mission lives only as long as the instance does. Obviously, the event can restart if completed or failed, but the life cycle is tied to the server. To create a sense of a bigger strategic goal, we need to elevate the event lifecycle away from the server. This is not as important for Xenothreat or similar events, but for industrial events it would really elevate the quality. So what do I mean by this? In the current implementation of dynamic events, all players can separately accept the mission and they together work towards a goal tracked for their specific server. But we can move the tracking of the goal outside of the game and raise the overall goal. For example, the goal would be to deliver several million SCU of cargo over the course of a week. The players could still be able to accept the mission in-game, but there wouldn't be any tracker for that server. You could track the contribution of the individual player, of course, but the event would be tracked out of the game, for example on the RSI website. Now, I know that dynamic events are supposed to be more localized, meaning affecting only one or a few star systems. But by developing a system for creating global dynamic events, CAG would give themselves a whole new system to play with, and a way to generate global efforts that many players can participate in, even once the game has multiple star systems and people are spread out. It also opens up opportunities to turn smaller missions into contributions to a larger dynamic event. So you wouldn't have to limit the system to industrial events, but you could also put out a global event with the goal for people to do bounty missions. It can really extend to whatever CAG you can think of. This also solves another issue of dynamic events. They take a long time to complete. Xenothreat can take a few hours if things are not going perfectly. This limits the ability of some players to get the completion rewards. By tying smaller missions to a bigger goal, you allow players to reach partial rewards with limited time and also work towards the global reward. And that brings us to having to slightly change the reward structure. If we start thinking in the context of global events, the current credit and reputation rewards don't quite work. Of course, you can still gain money and reputation for the partial missions you do as part of the global event, but you need something else for the global event completion. Now, this gets a bit complicated. Fortunately, CAG already figured out a pretty nice solution with the first Xenothreat event. Completing the event gave you progress towards gaining parts of the CDF branded armor. Global events could do something similar with armor and other gear. Now that personal hangars are coming in, they could even start giving out some cool hanger flair. They could actually define multiple reward tiers for the global event in case players beat the original goal. Generally, this could be a very interesting development for the dynamic event system. And with that being said, that's all for today. What do you think? Is Blockade Runner a cargo event? What non-combat events would you like to see? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.